Welcome to an introduction to Sinai. Honored to have you all here, everywhere from New Zealand to British Columbia to Arizona to Miriam. Did you say you were in Florida somewhere?
No, Michigan, much
Michigan.
colder.
Oh, you wish
Yeah,
Florida.
exactly.
Okay, fine. Um, what I want to do with you tonight, actually, I'm going to share a PowerPoint and discuss it that way. So let's get started. Okay. Not sure what you see on your screen, but I'm kind of this little guy in the bottom right corner.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Feel free to ask questions, share ideas. This is a very open format. We're a small group, so that will make it more interesting. Okay, introduction to Sinai. Where do we start? Well, we start with the Torah. We have to start with the Torah because that's where we have this story written down. And it says, I think this is chapter 19 of Exodus. I think it's 1, verse 1. In the third month, after the children of Israel left the land of Mitzrayim, Mitzrayim is Egypt in Hebrew, that same day they came into the wilderness of Sinai. Okay, so from the time the Jews leave Egypt to the time of Sinai, we have a tradition that was 50 days. On the 50th day, we heard the Ten Commandments. So they've gone through the sea, they've traveled through the desert a little bit, and they arrive at the mountain. It's a very interesting linguistic kind of hint over here, which tells us something interesting. So they traveled from Rephidim, that was the area they came from before, and they came to the desert of Sinai, and they encamped in the wilderness. And there, Israel, the Jewish people, camped before the mountain. Now, what's interesting is in the Hebrew, the word to encamp is chania. So it should really say v'yichanu. That would be the plural. The way that Hebrew works is there's a root, and then depending on the suffix and prefix, you can work out if it's singular or plural. So the anomaly over here is that it speaks about, they traveled from Rephidim, they came to the desert, they encamped in the desert, and then it says, and there Israel encamped opposite the mountain, and it uses the singular. And our rabbis, we have a tradition, Mechilta is a midrash, says, and there Israel encamped as one man with one mind. So there was a lot of unity. There was a lot of unity amongst the Jewish people at Sinai, which is important. It was a moment of great unity, and as our rabbis, who are always honest, told us, but all the other encampments were made in a murmuring spirit and in a spirit of dissension. So there was a unique moment in Jewish history where really there was, as one man with one mind, one heart, actually, in the Hebrew, a lot of unity. And I think, that unity was in purpose, right? Where you find unity in purpose. You find unity in coming together to do one thing. And they had come together to experience Sinai, and we're going to see what that means now. Okay. Then Moses goes up on the mountain, and Moshe went up to God, And the Lord called out to him out of the mountain. So this is the precursor. These are the days before the Ten Commandments. So the people heard the Ten Commandments on the sixth day, 6 days after on the sixth day from arriving at Sinai. And in the intermediate days, so Moses goes up on the mountain. According to tradition, this was the second day. So Moses goes up up to God, and the Lord called out to him from the mountain, saying, "This is what you should say to the house of Yaakov, and tell the children of Israel. You have seen what I did to Mitzrayim, to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself." Right? Now, therefore, if you obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then you shall be. Oh, I didn't realize that. When I present like this, I'm in the way. Don't know how to fix that actually. Oh, don't want to move that. Hang on. Let's see if Shirley can join. Okay. So you'll keep my covenant. That's a very important word. And then you shall be my own treasure. In Hebrew, that's segula. From among all peoples, for all the earth is mine. And you shall be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words, which thou shalt speak to the children of Israel. So I want to focus on these 4 phrases. The first one is briti, a Brit, as you might have heard this word before, right? The circumcision in Jewish tradition is called the Brit Milah. The word means covenant, and it's a very important word. God makes a Brit, a covenant with Abraham. He continues that covenant with Isaac and then Jacob, and then eventually, right, he kind of nationally solidifies the covenant at Sinai, right? So Sinai is this formation of a covenant. How is a covenant different to other agreements, right? There are many agreements. You can have a contract. What sort of a contract is a covenant? A covenant is a contract that binds people's identities. So that means when you enter into a covenant, you are no longer independent, but you have sworn yourself into something greater than yourself, a grouping. Okay, so you can have a covenant with your country, right? People speak like that. Loyalty to the nation, etc. Marriage is a covenant, right? Marriage in Jewish thinking is a covenant because you forge identities. Now, whether this is relevant today, people will argue, but in days gone by, not so long ago, when people got married, so as a sign of that change of identity, the woman would change her name to take on the name of the husband, right? That was just not getting into the issues that people might have with that at all. I'm just using it as an example of how people expressed a change in identity, right? I no longer, hopefully, when you get married, right? I tell married people this all the time, especially when they're newlyweds or about to get married, until now you thought about yourself. From now on, you should never think about yourself only, right? You need to think in terms of we. It's a beautiful story. there was a great rabbi in Jerusalem, Rav Aryeh Levine, who was an incredibly righteous person. Actually, the book about him is called A Tzaddik in Our Time. Very worthwhile read. And tzaddik is Hebrew for righteous. He was a righteous man. And the story goes that he went with his wife to the doctor because her leg was very painful. And, he went into the appointment and the doctor said, "What's wrong?" And he said, "Doctor, our leg is sore." Okay. That's someone who was living with covenant. Now, what's incredible about this is when we now think about the Jewish people and God. Because, okay, the Jewish people are entering into a covenant. We are the people of God, God's people. But God is entering into a covenant. And he's becoming the God of the Jewish people. We're going to see a little bit later what that means for the rest of the world. What does that mean for the rest of the world? Okay. But that's the idea of a covenant. So it's now, if Jewish custom around marriage is almost an enactment of Sinai. Why? Because Sinai was a type of marriage. It was the marriage between the Jewish people and God. And the book of Song of Songs actually is all about that. Okay, so that's in Hebrew the Brit. This is the formation of the covenant, and the outcome of the covenant is Vahayitem li segula. You will be to me a treasure among all the peoples. Okay. Let me see. Okay. So what is a segula? So, and you shall be a treasure among all the peoples, even though all types, well, let me go in order here. Sorry. Becoming the treasure, the segula of God through the covenant is important, and we're going to see now what it means. And from all the peoples, for all the earth is mine. This is a very important end of the verse, because all the earth is mine. Through doing this, we will be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you'll speak to the children of Israel. And the way the story continues, Moses goes down the mountain and he speaks to the people, and the people say, yes, right? They accept upon themselves this covenant and the consequences. Okay. Who is this rabbi? He definitely did not look like that, but someone decided he might have. Rav Ovadia ben Yaakov Saforno. So he was an Italian rabbi, a biblical commentator, philosopher, physician. They did it all in those days. A member of the Saforno family. It was a renowned family in Italy. Born in Cesena, 1475, and died in Bologna, 1548. He wrote a beautiful commentary on the Torah, on the Chumash, and I want to share just two insights that he offers. So he says like this: what does it mean that the Jewish people are God's treasure? What does that mean? So he says like this: and you will be a treasure among all the people, even though all types of humans are important to me, says God, above all the lower beings, since he, God, is represented only in them. What's the uniqueness about humanity over the rest of creation? As our rabbis in Pirkei Avot, the Ethics of the Father, says, humans are beloved because they were created in the image. Okay, so we are in the image of God. That's important. Still, you will be treasured among them. So out of all the people in the world, God cares for all the people in the world. It's his intention in creation, actually, is humanity. Every human being, according to Jewish thought, is created in the image of God. And yet the Jewish people are now going to be treasured among them, right? So other commentators say it's a jewel. It's a jewel. This word segula in Hebrew is a jewel, and it's a jewel of kings, right? The king takes for himself the jewels to express something. And let's try and understand what that expression is. A kingdom of priests. So this is very important. This will make you special, for only you will be a kingdom of priests, by teaching and instructing all of mankind to call out in the name of God, and for all to serve him together. So just like within the Jewish people, you have most people, and then you have a group called the Kohanim. That's the Hebrew word for priest. The priest serves in the temple and teaches the people, right? Almost like the priest's job is to remind the people to stay connected, to recognize, to honor God, right? That's the job. They are the instructors of that. So the Jewish people, they are this kingdom of priests for the whole world, right? You could think of all of humanity as kind of the Jewish, the nation, and the family within all of humanity that serves the role of the priests are the Jewish people. What's that role? Well, to get everyone to recognize God, right? To call out in God's name and to serve him together. When will this happen? This was to be a forerunner of what will happen in the distant future, as predicted by the prophet Isaiah, and you will be proclaimed priests of the Lord. This is also the true meaning of Ki Mitzion Teitzei Torah. The Torah emanates from Zion. I like to think of it in terms of purpose. A purpose of anything is outside of it. Outside, right? Things don't have a purpose in themselves. The purpose is outside of the system. So the Jewish people, our purpose is to be this. There's also in Isaiah, there's a verse that says, a light unto the nations. Hence my little picture over here. We're meant to be a light unto the nations. It's meant to be an exemplary people that brings all of mankind to the knowledge of God and divine service. A holy nation. So in the Hebrew, the order was, let's go back to the Hebrew quickly, right? You shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. What is a holy nation? So at the beginning of Leviticus 19, it says, speak to all the congregation of the children of Israel and say to them, Kadoshim to you, you shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. What is, in Hebrew, the word is Kedusha. What is Kedusha? Holiness, godliness. Kedusha is God. God says, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. That's my nature. In Hebrew, in the world that we live in, there's something called chol. Chol, all right, Yemei HaChol, or the weekday. Chol means mundane. The world is a mundane world. The natural world is mundane. It is not obviously connected to God. Kedusha means connection to God, godliness. Okay? So this is the Jewish mission. The Jewish mission is to be a holy nation. an elevated, godly nation. How do we live? How do the Jewish people live? How are we meant to live? What is this covenant? So God says, I am forming a covenant with you. My identity, as it were, I become the God of the Jewish people. You become my people. Your mission is then to live as my people. How do you live as God's people? As an elevated, godly people, right? Live in an elevated way. Everything that the Torah is teaching us is how to be holy, how to be kadosh, how to be this higher than the mundane, the regular nation. If we do that, if we fulfill our mission, we will then fulfill our purpose as well. Because our purpose is to be a light unto the nations. Now, there is a lot of thought in Jewish thought. What does that? How does that express itself? Actively or as an example? Well, the Sforno definitely thought that somehow we would teach, right? Somehow the Jewish people can end up teaching and instructing all of mankind how to call out in the name of God. Sounds quite active. Other thinkers think that it's a much more passive accomplishment of purpose, is do what my father, of blessed memory, used to say when I used to tell him that I was very interested in making lots of money. He did not tell me to become a rabbi, but he did say to me, do what you love, do it well, and the money will come. Often our mission and our purpose, right, work those ways, meaning the purpose is almost it's not a byproduct in the term, in the sense that it's less significant, but it comes about. You can't grab purpose. You can grab mission. You can wake up in the morning and you can be a very holy nation. How on earth is the whole world going to come to know God? By doing this, by becoming a holy nation. Okay, now let's talk about the Sinai experience within Judaism. It's the only time, according to our tradition, that God spoke to an entire nation. From then on, it was through the prophets. Obviously, Moses is the greatest of the prophets, but there are many, many prophets within the Jewish tradition. It's in the Christian tradition, this would be called the Old Testament, right, which includes all of the major prophets, the minor prophets, the writings. In Jewish tradition, the world of prophecy is contained in the Bible, in what's called the Tanakh, the Torah, the Nevi'im, the Ketuvim, the 5 books of Moses, the prophets, and the writings. Now, there were many more prophets than just those, but the prophecies that were necessary for all time, these are them. That's what we have today. The Sinai experience, so think about it. It's the only time God speaks to the entire nation. And then it is by one prophet by another. Number 2, tablets and the ark. They are the only words put on the tablets and kept in the ark, which is placed in the Holy of Holies. That's significant, right? Meaning, in the Torah, in the Bible, the 10 Commandments appear twice. Once in the story in Exodus, when they happen, and the second version is in Deuteronomy, when they are repeated. They are in the Torah, but it's a story about the tablets. Why were these words put on the tablets? And the rest of the Torah is written on a scroll. That is significant. And the third thing is to realize that what we have as what we call the Ten Commandments is really not accurate. The Torah never calls them the Ten Commandments. They're called the Devarim, Aseret HaDevarim, which means statements. If they were commandments, they would be mitzvot. They are not the 10 mitzvot. So let's think about it. All right, famous picture by Rembrandt, right? And the smashing of the tablets. This is a artistic rendition of what the tabernacle looked like. And this is called the Kodesh, the Holy. And this area here, which was curtained off, called the Holy of Holies. This is a picture of the Ark, what the Ark probably something looked like that. Pretty detailed description in the Torah about how to build it, so it's probably quite accurate. That Ark was placed in the Holy of Holies. Actually the wrong way around, but that's okay. And in the Ark were placed the tablets. Just so we know the chronology. So we said the Jews came out of Egypt. 50 days later, they get the Ten Commandments. They hear the Ten Commandments from God. The next day, Moses goes up on the mountain to receive the tablets. So they didn't get the tablets on the day that they heard them. Moses goes on the mountain for 40 days to collect them. When he comes down, he sees the golden calf. He breaks the tablets. Then he goes up another time for 40 days to get forgiveness. Comes down Rosh Chodesh Elul. He goes up to get what we call the second tablets. And he comes back on Yom Kippur. Actually, on the Day of Atonement, he arrives back into the camp with the second tablets. So, and they are then put into the ark, kept in the Holy of Holies. Now, ultimately, where does that land up? That lands up, I didn't put a picture here, that lands up on the Temple Mount. Right? This becomes the central feature of the temple. Right? It's called the Temple of Testimony. It's the Temple of Testimony. What's the testimony? That God spoke to us and gave us the tablets. That the tablets are resting in the ark. Okay, so that's very significant about what these 10 sayings, not commandments, what these 10 sayings, what role they played. Right? It's a central role. It's interesting. It's a hidden role. As central as it is, this area was really not entered into except once a year by the high priest, who would go in there on the Day of Atonement. So the tablets are kept covered in an ark. They are hidden. They're hidden out of sight, but they're very much present, just like our inner thoughts, just like our values. You can't see someone's values. They're inside of them, but they're ever present. So that's the role that the Ten Commandments play within the Jewish people. Now, I said before, they are called dibrot, not mitzvot. Where did the phrase Ten Commandments come from? It's an important distinction because, as I'm about to explain to you, the Aseret HaDibrot, these 10 statements really encapture the whole Torah. This is the framework for the entire Jewish religion and mindset are encompassed in the 10 commandments. Why did they become, now they're not commandments because obviously they are statements. We do have a tradition that there are 613 commandments. And these, by the way, are part of that paradigm. They do live in that world, right? Do not murder, do not commit adultery. These are part of the 613 mitzvot, commandments that the Jewish people have, but they are not called that, and they play this different role, right? The role that they play is dibrot, that they are statements, that are further reaching. How did they come to be known as commandments, especially in English? Actually, in Hebrew, they are not called. This mistake does not exist in Hebrew. Even in modern day Israel, you would ask a school kid, all right, Maha Aserta Dibrot. What are the 10 statements? It's only in English that we have this anomaly. The fault is actually it derived in the Geneva Bible and then was included in the King James Bible. And once it was there, there's no going back. So this is in the original King James Version, actually spelled 10 differently in those days, but it says the 10 Commandments, right? Chapter 20 of Exodus, the 10 Commandments, the people are afraid. That's it. Afterwards, Moses comforteth them. Idolatry is forbidden once again, and of what sort the altar should be, how to build the altar. So here's the villain is actually crept into the King James Version, and that's how we know them today as the 10 Commandments. What are they? So I like to think of them as the magic formula for Judaism. Just like in science, you might have one equation, which really is very fundamental. And from that one equation, you can expand it and go off in 100 different ways about how it expresses itself. How is it meaningful in life? So the 10 Commandments really are a synopsis. They are the character, and they are really the mission and the purpose of the Jewish people are contained in them. So that's what I'm going to call stage one. Any questions at this stage? Okay, then. So we can go to stage two. Stage two is that where do the Jewish people make express this understanding of the 10 Commandments? So definitely visually, if you've ever been into a synagogue or a Jewish school, or right, they're often very prominently displayed, and sometimes just in a very shortened form, right? You could even just have the Hebrew letters, Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, all the way to Yud. Besides that, inside of the synagogue, they're often on the actual ark that houses the Torah, on top of the ark. They would be displayed. When they are read in synagogues, so this is really an interesting thing. There is a custom to stand for them. So normally, every week there is a reading of the Torah to the community, and there's no obligation to stand. Some people do stand to listen to it, but there's no obligation to do that. Most people sit. When it comes to the 10 Commandments, many synagogues have the custom to stand up. Now, Maimonides was asked a question. Maimonides, besides being a great rabbi and physician, also wrote a lot of correspondence, responsa. People would write to him questions. And the question came to him. There was a rabbi that took over a new synagogue, and he noted that in the synagogue, when it got to the Ten Commandments, they would stand, and he was not used to this custom. So he wrote to Maimonides, and he said, "What should we do? I'm not sure about the correct custom." Maimonides writes back and says, "Well, be careful. Standing would give them precedence, would give them more importance, a sense of being more important than the rest of the Torah. And that's not true. The whole Bible, the whole Torah is true and significant and necessary. It's not a religion around the Ten Commandments." Where is he coming from? So going back, it would appear to the early Christians. The early Christians, according to the Talmud, or at least a sect of early Christians, were very interested in modifying Judaism. And what they claimed was that it's really all about the Ten Commandments. You don't need the details in the rest of the Torah. This caused a lot of concern for the Jewish community, because it's a very compelling idea, right? Don't be overly complicated, right? All we need is the Ten Commandments. The rabbis then made a concerted effort, actually, not to focus on them almost at all, right? The rabbis really diverted the attention of the people to other parts of the Torah, right? What became, instead of the Ten Commandments, what became the best known recitation of Jewish faith became what's called the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Now, what many people don't know is that the Shema is an affirmation of the Ten Commandments, right? God said, "I'm the Lord your God." The Jewish people responded and said, "The Lord is our God." God said, "Do not have any other gods." The Jewish people responded, "The Lord is one. There is no need. There is no other gods," etc. So that's why you don't find in classic Jewish thought throughout the ages that much about the Ten Commandments playing this role, really, because they were very worried that people would make would focus on them exclusively, would give them too much importance, because we have an entire Torah, we have an entire all the 613 mitzvot, which are essential. And that, my friends, is my introduction to Sinai.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions?
That was really good. Thank you so much for explaining.
That was very interesting. Are the tablets still felt to be at the Temple Mount now, or whatever happened to the original tablets? Is there a story about that? Or
there are a few legends about it. It is interesting that I believe the Arch of Titus in Rome, which depicts the Romans returning to Rome with the spoils of the temple, do not have the tablets on them. Right? They have the menorah. They do not have the tablets. Most accepted, I guess, tradition is that they were actually hidden somewhere in the Temple Mount. But no one's found them. And in fact, many movies were made about the Lost Ark. So we don't know where they are right now.
Well, I have a quick question,
Yes.
if I may. In my whole life, I've heard, of course, that we are created in the image of God. Now, is that literal, or is that not literal? And
Well,
what does that really mean?
good question, James, right? So the problem again is one of translation, because we know God has no image. God is not physical. And we think the word image really connotes something physical. So for sure that is incorrect. We do not have that. There's a lot of discussion about what it really means. But I would say the points that are agreed to by, let's say, most commentators are, number one, it's actually our free will. The image of God gives us free will. That's a divine quality. Just like God is free, we are free. The image of God also gives us the ability and the inclination to act in godly ways. So just like, right, empathy and mercy and kindness, in Hebrew, chesed and rachamim, and chanun, these are godly traits which we have been endowed with.
Mhm.
So it would appear that it's the ability to choose to act in godly ways. That's what this image of God means in the human, and every human being has it. It's good and evil, and it's the ability to do good.
Thank you.
Is that what they call the Yetzer Hara and Yetzer Tovah?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So in Hebrew, the word yetzer means inclination. So we are told that our tradition talks in terms of the yetzer hara, the evil inclination. This is a very selfish inclination that most people have. But then there's the yetzer hatov, the good inclination, and that is our inclination to do good. And we're in the middle of that, and we should choose, and we do choose all day long, and hopefully we choose the right choices.
Thank you.
Okay, folks. So that's that for today. We'll hopefully soon going to start some more a newsletter and have much more about Aseret and the film and what we're doing with it. So stay tuned.
I have one more question.
Okay.
Do you know when the next tragic awakening?
Yes, if you go to tragicAwakening.com, it actually will be on March the 16th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
Okay, thank you.
And you can register and you can share with your family and friends.
Thank you very much for an interesting talk.
Okay.
Thank you,
Great.
Rabbi.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. That was very interesting. Thank you. Very informative.
Great. Thank you very much for attending.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.